Now let's head to Ghana, where the economic crisis and the worsening cost of living in the past 5 years have sparked mass outrage. However, the security forces have often clamped down on protests that have been taking place with increasing frequency over the past 2 years. But on Thursday, hundreds of protesters massed around the Jubilee House, Ghana's presidential palace in the capital, Accra, and were greeted by heavily armed officers. Ghanaian police detained 49 demonstrators protesting the cost of living and the economic crisis crippling the country. Among those held by the police were activists and some journalists who were covering the protest. Now, joining me live from Ghana to make sense of this conversation is Eric Mawuena, Egbeta, journalist. A warm welcome to you, Eric, and thanks for joining us.
Many thanks for having me as well.
Now, Eric, let's get straight to it. What are the most significant challenges and obstacles you've encountered as a journalist in fulfilling your duties and responsibilities while covering the protest, particularly in terms of safety and access to information?
Well, one, we've been stopped from filming at some point. When the protests began early yesterday, Thursday, at about 7:30 GMT, the protesters actually couldn't come together or converge in the numbers they were expecting, because just a handful of them who had gathered, the police quickly swooped in on them and began to round them up and force them into a bus which had been brought to the area. And so as journalists, at the time even, I happened to have been we were just two journalists really who were there, and I started filming. And so I got when they were moving them into the bus and the likes. And then the police officers came to me and said, okay, you have to stop filming now. And I asked, what, I can't film, you're rounding them up into a bus. Why do I have to stop filming? And they asked that I stop filming. My cameraman was forced to move away, and so he couldn't film so much, but I was able to film. And so a great deal of what we use much later for the reportage at my media house was visuals that I insisted on in filming that I got. And so that was perhaps the start of what could be a difficult coverage of the protest in its entirety. They were taken to the regional police command in the capital. And so quickly, I left the convergence point and headed towards the regional police command. When we left, because the news had not reached out, wasn't out there so much, people still were moving to the convergence point. And that's where a lot of them were even rounded up. And so I must mention as well that even in the morning when they were rounding up the protesters, because they weren't identifying who was a protester and who was not, some journalists were being picked up as well. In fact, I had to intercede on behalf of a colleague journalist because I was properly identified as a media person. I had indications clearly on all of the attire I was in that I was a media person. Some of my other colleagues didn't quite have that. And so they were being rounded up, being dragged to the bus, and quickly I stepped in and told the officers that, look, that's a media person, they're with us, and so you have to let them go. And that's how come they got saved to start off with. And then
thank you very much, Eric. I'm afraid we've run out of time on this subject. Thank you for your time, Eric Mawuena, Egbeta. Will continue to monitor situations in Ghana with regards to the cost of living protests, which is fast developing. Thank you once again, Eric.